quickly, you didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are.
That's the commitment we made. That's the commitment we made. We are not, look, here's the situation. We agree with a one China policy. We signed on to it, and all the attendant agreements made from there. But the idea that it can be taken by force, just taken by force, is just not appropriate. It will dislocate the entire region and be another action similar to what happened in Ukraine.
Good morning from Nicosia, Cyprus. It is 8:30 on this Tuesday morning. You saw the opening segment with Biden taking questions from reporters. The question about Taiwan came up, of course. And the reporter said, will the U.S. get involved if something happens in Taiwan against China? And Biden said, yeah, absolutely. Because according to Biden, that's U.S. policy, which is news to me, and I'm sure news to everyone watching. I didn't know that official U.S. policy was to get into a hot war with China should something happen in Taiwan. But Bloomberg came back, running cover for the Biden White House. They came back with a report saying that they have inside sources in the White House who have said that Biden misspoke. Once again, it's another Biden gaffe. Oh, it's Uncle Joe. He misspeaks every now and then. No worries, no problem. But Biden did not misspeak. He did not misspeak at all. First of all, Biden did the same exact thing during the run-up to the conflict in Ukraine. He even went to Warsaw and he called for regime change in Moscow. Remember that? And then Psaki came back and she said, oh, Biden just misspoke. He didn't mean regime change. Blinken as well. They all walked it back. But in the run-up to the conflict in Ukraine and during the conflict in Ukraine, Biden said all kinds of crazy things that did not help the situation. And the usual excuse was that Biden just misspoke. Biden is not misspeaking when he makes these gaffes. Biden is just repeating what he's overhearing during policy meetings in the White House. That's all he's doing. He's just kind of sitting in the corner in the Oval Office while Blinken and Nuland and Sullivan, they're having their neocon conversations and they're talking about how they're going to conquer the world. And now it's Russia and next is China. And this is how we're going to poke the bear. And this is how we're going to poke the dragon. So we're going to poke the bear by starting up conflicts in Ukraine, by ratcheting up the tension in Ukraine. This is how we're going to poke the bear. And we're going to poke the dragon by ratcheting up tensions in Taiwan. And Biden overhears this, and he just repeats it. You know, it's like a child listening to what their big brother is saying. You know, you're like a little kid, and you hear your big brother and, I don't know, his friends talking about stuff. And all of a sudden, one of them says a curse word that you've never heard before. And you're like, oh, my God, what's that? You know, you're like a little kid, and then you go to school, and you repeat the same curse word to your teacher. That's what's happening here. Biden is just, some of the stuff, you know, goes in one ear and out the other. Other stuff he kind of retains, and he just repeats it. So when a reporter asks him about Taiwan, instead of him reading from the script, he repeats what he overheard at the Oval Office. And he says, yeah, we're going to go to war with China because that is what Jake Sullivan and that is what Nuland and Blinken, that is what they want. They want to figure out ways to poke the dragon. And the obvious way to poke the dragon is via Taiwan, which is pretty much what they did with Russia. The obvious way to poke Russia was with Ukraine. And Ukraine, they had Elensky, who was happy to do it. And so we now inch closer to a conflict in China. The Chinese were furious. They issued their warnings, but the damage has been done. And this was not an accident. This was not an accident at all. This is Biden letting the world know what his team in the White House is thinking. That's all it is. So I've said in many videos how NATO is looking to create some sort of offshoot of NATO in the Pacific. You know, NATO South Pacific or NATO Indo-Pacific, a franchise of the military alliance in Europe. They want to franchise it out to Asia, and it's going to be done, of course, to contain. That's a word they like to use, to contain Taiwan, to contain China. But NATO is also making inroads in Latin America, because Biden, he actually put this issue up to discussion about, like, say, a month or two ago. But he made it official by designating Colombia as a major non-NATO ally. Like, Colombia is now like a special Latin America NATO member, in a way. And Biden made it official the other day. And Colombia, for its part, is now going to help train Ukrainian soldiers and send weapons to Ukraine, because it now has the status of a non-NATO ally. So I was talking about NATO Asia, but we're now seeing the first sign of a NATO Latin America. And I guess it kind of makes sense, because China is also making inroads in Latin America from a business standpoint, from a business perspective. China is doing a lot of stuff in Latin America. And so what's the U.S.'s response? Not to get involved on a business level, but to lock everything up on a military level. And that is to start to create some sort of NATO presence in Latin America. So Colombia is the first country on board. And we'll see how this NATO Latin America begins to expand and how it begins to develop. But you also have, while we're speaking about sending weapons and military trainers to, or getting military personnel to train Ukrainian soldiers, we have New Zealand. They're sending military trainers, I believe, to the UK to train Ukrainian soldiers on using howitzers. I think that's what New Zealand is going to be training the Ukraine military on. And you have Denmark as the country that has been designated to be the provider of those anti-ship missiles. So I talked about how the U.S. was not trying to figure out. They were discussing if they wanted to send those anti-ship missiles directly to Ukraine, or if they were going to do it via a third country. And now we know the country that is going to be the go-between to get these anti-ship missiles to Ukraine is Denmark. They're going to be the ones to send these Harpoon missiles, which, according to the Collective West narrative, will be the anti-ship missiles, which will blow apart the Russian naval blockade, this fictitious naval blockade, and it's going to free up all the ships which are just packed full of wheat, and those ships are going to feed the world. And they're going to spoil Putin's evil plan to starve the planet. That's pretty much the narrative that you get out of the Collective West. But Denmark, you're going to be the country that ships these anti-ship missiles to the Elensky regime. So New Zealand is going to be training Ukrainian soldiers. Actually, those soldiers, they say, are going to be ready by like the end of July, early August. So New Zealand is going to be training Ukrainian soldiers on howitzers, and Denmark is going to be shipping off those anti-ship missiles to blow apart the Russian Navy and to remove this naval blockade which is actually a good lead up to my final story, which is connected to my clown world. And since we're talking about naval blockades and Putin's evil plan to starve the world, we have to talk about the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And this is going to be my final news topic that I'm going to discuss, and it's also going to be my clown world. And we had the headline speaker at the WEF, Elensky. He gave the speech to all the globalists and to Klaus Schwab. And Elensky, of course, in typical Elensky fashion, wearing his green camouflage t-shirt, so that mystery is now solved. I asked the question, do you think Elensky's going to suit up, like wear a suit and tie, or is he going to wear the green camouflage t-shirt? And now we know. So he broke out one of his, I guess he has 100 of these shirts, one of these green camouflage t-shirts, and he gave the headline speech at the WEF. And Zelensky said, "The world is united because of threats, the war, Russian aggression. I don't want you to lose this unity." So Zelensky also said, speaking via a translator, that they need to implement a full embargo on Russian oil. They need to bar Russian banks from global systems with zero exceptions. And he called for companies to abandon the Russian IT sector and for a ban on all trade with Russia. Zelensky said, "This is what sanctions should be. They should be maximum so that Russia and every other potential aggressor that wants to wage a brutal war against its neighbor would clearly know the immediate consequences of their actions." Now, Bloomberg reacted to Elensky's speech, and they said that it's crucial to transform Putin's Russia into a world pariah. And they said that this can be particularly effective if seriously absorbed by the audience of the World Economic Forum, by the Olympus of managers, politicians, economists gathered in the Swiss Alps from all over the world. So Bloomberg, in the one case with Biden where he misspoke about China, they ran cover for Biden. In the case of Elensky, we see Bloomberg amplifying Elensky's call to turn Russia into what Bloomberg says would be a world pariah. I mean, they've already put maximum sanctions on Russia, the collective West. There's really not much more they can do. I mean, the EU is struggling, and they struggle to put together a sixth package of sanctions against Russia, and a seventh is like, they say there's nothing left. They don't have anything more that they can sanction Russia on. So I'm not really sure what Elensky is calling for here when he means maximum. I think they've already reached maximum. I guess the maximum would be an oil and gas embargo. That would be maximum. But that would also mean that that Europe would just completely collapse. I think that Elensky, that he's on the payroll. He's on the payroll of the globalists, and he's on the payroll of the military-industrial complex. I think the guy's like, he's an actor and he's playing his part, but he's getting paid for all of this stuff. I have no doubt about it. No doubt about it that the military-industrial complex, they're telling Elensky, look, push for more weapons and we'll give you, your cut. We'll give you your commission. And that's what he's doing. And I'm sure that the globalists and the globalist forces, that for some reason, some monetary reason, they want to embargo oil and do all of these things. I'm sure that they're also telling Elensky, call for a Russian oil embargo, call for a gas embargo. Maybe you have energy companies that are looking to get into the European market, to monopolize the European market. The LNG companies, maybe, for example. And they're telling Elensky to push this stuff out, and he's going to get his commission. That's why he's saying all of this. The other thing that's interesting about Elensky is that he's not even interested in the Donbass, is he? The entire collective West is not interested at all in the Donbass, and all the people at the WEF, they're not going to talk about what's happening in the east of Ukraine. The media, they don't even mention it anymore. They're done with the east of Ukraine. And after Mariupol and Azovstal, they're out. Lviv, by the way, is, from what I understand, they're creating a monument now to the heroes of Azovstal. Interesting. But yeah, Elensky doesn't talk about it. He doesn't really care about it. He's just like, whatever. He mentioned the other day that 100 troops are dying, but once again, he says that, and what's his next line? Give us more weapons. More weapons. We need to sell more weapons. That's his gig. That's his shtick. But after the speech that he gave at the WEF, Elensky then gave an interview to Axios, and he basically said that the war in Ukraine is a war that's saving America. That Ukraine is holding the line, and if they don't hold the line, then Russia's going to come after Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and eventually they're going to make their way through Europe, and who knows, they'll probably get to the United States as well. That's what Elensky pretty much told Axios, that this war in Ukraine is about saving American lives. And he said, give us more weapons. More weapons, more weapons. That's his whole, that's his sales pitch. God, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The WEF, of course, had many clown world moments, and I'll get to those real quick. We also had a UN representative parrot out the Russian blockade narrative, which is interesting. The UN representative said that the Russian blockade is a declaration of war on the globe's food security. That's what this UN representative actually said. David Beasley, executive director of the United Nations World Food Program. This is what he said during a panel discussion. A declaration of war on the globe's food security. You would think that these UN guys know the real deal as to what's going on in the Black Sea, and that they would know that Russia has no naval blockade. You would think they know that, and I'm sure they do. But the UN has decided to take a side during this conflict, and that's wrong. That is against the UN Charter. Guterres did it pretty much when the conflict broke out. He immediately took sides with Ukraine. And now you see this guy who deals with world food security, whatever, this UN official, amplifying the lie that a blockade is a declaration of war. A Russian blockade is the equivalent of a declaration of war. And the UN shouldn't be coming out with statements like this. It is not in the UN's place to take sides. They should be mediating and looking for solutions, peaceful solutions to these conflicts, not trying to escalate them. And that is what this UN official is doing. But he is at the WEF, and he's speaking to a bunch of globalist warmongers. So, there you have it. Elensky speaking at the WEF, to me, signals how the WEF is really just becoming a parody, isn't it? It's becoming a clown show, a circus. And it's not what it used to be, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where not many people talked about it, and they just kind of thought of it as, just an elitist get-together. No one knew who Klaus Schwab was, and everyone really didn't pay attention. Now it's like this WEF, this conference, you look at the show that Elensky gave, and you look at the speakers, Van der Crazy and Olaf Scholz, and this UN panel discussion, this UN official speaking at this panel discussion and his crazy comments. And you listen to what everyone is saying and what Klaus Schwab said. And the WEF is like a Monty Python skit. That's what it's become. It really has become a true circus. And everyone knows it. And everyone talks about what an S show the WEF is. And just listen to this Klaus Schwab speech. Let me play this Klaus Schwab video.
Let's also be clear. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the states of the world. But two conditions are necessary. The first one is that we act all as stakeholders of larger communities, that we serve not our only self-interests, but we serve the community. That's what we call stakeholder responsibility. And second, that we collaborate. And this is the reason why you find many opportunities here during the meeting to engage into very action and impact-oriented initiatives to make progress related to specific issues on the global agenda.
Yeah, so I mean, Klaus Schwab is, you can't take these guys seriously. It's like their cover has been blown. And with each meeting they have, and each speech that they give, and each statement that comes out of them, one is more ridiculous than the other. And Elensky headlining the WEF, you would think like 10 years ago that would be a huge gig, right? I'm the headline speaker at the WEF. But now being the headline speaker at the WEF is kind of like, it's not really an important venue anymore, is it? I mean, he was speaking in front of Parliament, Congress, and now look at him. He has to headline the WEF. That's how low Elensky has sunk. And he knows it. That's why in his speech he said, you know, you guys need to pay attention to us. Don't forget about Ukraine. Give us more weapons. Elensky understands that his popularity is fading. He kind of reminds me of Avenatti in a way. You know, Avenatti was doing all the shows, and then eventually it just all dried up. And people just started to not care about Avenatti, and now we have Avenatti is in prison, isn't he? I think he went to jail, or he's about to go to prison or something, or he's hiding out on parole, something like that. But that's what Elensky reminds me of. He's like an Avenatti figure. He understands that he went from playing stadiums and now he's playing dive bars. That's what the WEF is, circuses. He went from playing stadiums and now he's doing circus shows. So that leads me to my clown world, and it has to do with a statement coming out of Australia's e-safety director, if that's even a position. And her name is, God, I forgot her name. It's not even important, but let me play a video as to what she said, because she came out with a statement during a panel discussion saying how the world needs to recalibrate its free speech and human rights. Let me find her name here. What is her name? Here we go. Australian E-Safety Commissioner Julie Inman raised eyebrows on Monday, telling the World Economic Forum that there needs to be a recalibration of free speech. Let me play the video.
We are finding ourselves in a place where we have increasing polarization everywhere, and everything feels binary when it doesn't need to be. So I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online, you know, from freedom of speech to the freedom to, you know, to be free from online violence, or the right of data protection to the right to child dignity.
That was your e-safety commissioner from Australia, basically saying that the globalists need to get rid of human rights and free speech. That's pretty much what she's saying. We need to recalibrate it. Well, who's going to recalibrate it? Klaus Schwab? No thanks. I don't know what's more clownish. Her statement during this panel discussion, or the fact that Australia has an e-safety commissioner. Which one is more clown world? An actual position called e-safety commissioner, or the person holding that position, Miss Inman, and her calls to recalibrate the global human rights and free speech situation online. Interesting word, recalibrate. They do love their words, don't they? We need to recalibrate things. It is a circus. It is, the WEF is not, it's not a serious thing anymore. That's how I feel about it. I know, you know, what they talk about is sinister, and they're planning stuff with China and Ukraine and monkeypox and all of these things, but they're not serious. This is not a serious bunch anymore. The WEF is, I think it's going to become a thing of the past. I really do. Because it's a laughable conference now. It really is. I mean, everyone is just making jokes about it. And the fact that you had Elensky headlining, I think that says it all. But I think I'll leave it there. Check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. And go to the duran.locals.com. It's time to grab a coffee and get this video up. Take care, everybody.